What's going on, guys? I'm FlynnMasters, and today, with the premiere of Season 24 coming up next week, I figured this would be the perfect time to rank every premiere episode in Hell's Kitchen history. So obviously I posted my top 5 premiere episodes last year at this time, but I figured for this year I might as well talk about each one, and what exactly makes each premiere episode stand out for better or for worse. Now when doing this list, I will count the 2-part episodes we've seen since All-Stars as one full episode, as it obviously wouldn't be fair to compare those premieres to the premieres that featured both the Signature Dish and Service, and the same thing goes for Season 11. Although I will say I'll be a bit more harsher to those seasons given they had extended time and thus a chance for more moments, a better chance to flesh out the characters, all of that, so I will be a bit more harsh. But yeah, let's get this list started with, in my opinion, the worst premiere in Hell's Kitchen history, and that is a 2-part premiere from All Stars. And like, it's so sad I have to put them here, and because it was so cool to see all these chefs back, and the fact that this season was actually happening was really exciting at the time. But I just felt nothing really of note happened here, except some things that made me pretty upset. Like, for example, in the first part for mostly the Signature Dish Challenge, like, that felt so pointless, since the majority of these chefs had obviously produced a good Signature Dish in the past. And lo and behold, Robin was really the only chef to struggle here. Like, he had a couple of other twos. But, like, for me, it felt like more of a chance for the show to give some flashbacks to these characters of some of their more memorable moments. Which, again, to be fair, that does make sense for the casuals, but for us hardcore fans, it's just, kind of time wasting. And again, the service was nothing to note except for, of course, Elise being a problem, which made you horrified of what was to come this season, especially since because she could have easily been eliminated right off the bat, but poor Ben would be the one to go home instead. Which I know some people defend this decision, but to me it's like, why even bring him back in the first place if his health is in poor condition? And again, despite all these great chefs back, there's just not much of note happening. And I guess it was a sign of things to come this season with how disappointing things would end up being. On to number 22, and that is the premiere of Season 16. And I remember this so clearly in that this premiere just felt so rushed in that, they had to do all the military training stuff, then the Signature Dishes, the reward and punishment, and the service all in one episode. And by the end, I just felt I had no real grasp of anyone, especially on the red team, who, yeah, probably put on the greatest team service of all time on opening night, but like, it wasn't really highlighted in any way, so it all just, kind of fell to the wayside in my opinion. Now, of course, the big moment here is the GoPro insult from Ramsey, one of his better ones, but like, that's really it in my opinion. I mean, I guess the blue team wasn't totally awful, they were just kind of bad here, I guess, as, sad as that is to say. Especially with the way they outcasted Pat, with him going home after doing very little wrong. Puts an even bigger sour taste in my mouth. So yeah, kind of the opposite of All Stars and just a very rushed premiere with not many noteworthy moments. And I came out of this episode not knowing pretty much any of the chefs and, pretty pissed off at Pat's elimination. So a very low ranking here for Season 16, unsurprisingly. Number 21 could almost be word for word, and that is the premiere of Season 15. And again, not only was it rushed in my opinion, but just nothing noteworthy happening in this episode. Like, yeah, pretty bad service on the Blue Kitchen, but nothing all-time awful or memorable. The Red Team service also wasn't much of note either, other than Vanessa's meltdown. And I mean, we literally have a joke of a first boot here in Mark, with how little he adds to this premiere. And even then, most people think it should have been Kevin. So yeah, just not much to say about this premiere, and that's why it lands here at number 21. At number 20 is the premiere that started it all, but as an episode, it's not that great, especially compared to other premieres. And that is, of course, the premiere of Season 1. And again, obviously iconic in that, of course, this began the show we all know and love, but that's a big issue as well, as there's just not much time in actually meeting and getting to know the chefs, as opposed to explaining how the show works, talking about who the sous chefs are, all of that stuff, which again, you can't fault and that makes sense, but still. And I mean, you do have some memorable moments here from Ramsey right away, of course, showing the type of person he would become to the world with his insults during the Signature Dish Challenge and service, with probably his best insult and moment of this premiere in general, being his plastic surgery comment to the ladies complaining. But even the boots here, I've said this before in Caroline, like, she is such an underwhelming first boot in the show's history. So, like, I mean, it may be a bit harsh to put the premiere this low, given that it makes sense why it couldn't be like a top tier premiere or anything, given the circumstances. But nonetheless, I have to put it here at number 20. At number 19 is a season I hate to put this low as well, but I do think I'll go with the premiere of Season 13. And again, has a lot of the problems that we've talked about so far, and that the characters aren't super fleshed out, and no real big time moments, other than, of course, the best opening night in Hell's Kitchen history at that time from the red team. But again, as you guys know, while that is a cool moment for sure, I'm more so the type of person that enjoys failures and insane moments in this premiere. And yeah, the blue team had a multitude of people messing up, which was interesting to see. And it was really truly up in the air on who was going home and who was even going up for elimination for that matter. You got the JP and JR install from Ramsey. So, like, it has its moments. And you can even argue the episode in general is more spread out with moments as opposed to some of the seasons above it that has, like, one specific moment or character. But in the end, season 13's premiere is just below average to me, and it lands here at number 19. At number 18 is actually season 18, Rookies versus Veterans. And like the whole intro is pretty funny, but cheesy at the same time. And again, a lot of the same problems with All Stars in that, yeah, it's cool to see these returnees back, but it's like I already know about their history. And it also takes away from the rookies. It kind of makes them seem more important. And honestly, the only reason why this season is out of the bottom 5 is due to Scott, an all-time hilarious first boot with how clueless he was, to the point where you almost think he's trolling. So yeah, nothing much of note happening in both episodes, honestly. But due to Scott being an all-time awful and funny first boot for that matter, Rookies vs. Veterans is able to propel itself to number 18. At number 17 is the season that followed Rookies vs. Veterans in season 19, Las Vegas. And again, a complete tale of two halves here, as yeah, the first part, while we are building characters, there's nothing much of note happening, but the second half is pretty damn good. Or maybe not even like that good, but just very notable, I guess you could say. As of course, we got the first ever opening elimination challenge with Kenneth going home due to Potato Gate, only for the person who outlasted him and Elliot to be completely in space during service, and he didn't even bother fighting for a spot in the game, with Ramsey completely burying him during his coat hanging. And in general, like, it was cool to meet a cast that we would all grow to love. So it's a fine premiere with one massive moment, honestly. But that's just not good enough when it's, spread out into 2 parts. So because of that, I just can't put this premiere much higher than number 17. The next 2 seasons are back-to-back seasons as well. But what makes them stand out is completely different. And we'll first start out with the premiere of Head Chefs Only. And of course, what makes this premiere stand out is the Sinner Dish Challenge, the greatest Sinner Dish Challenge of all time, with everyone besides one chef getting a 4 or above. And again, while I'm a lot higher on mess-ups, of course, and donkeys in a premiere episode, this truly set the stage for the season. And we all went into the season thinking this was going to be a talented cast. And oh my goodness, did they set the standards high. And it makes it all that more interesting when the service was a contrast and both teams got kicked out. Now, again, it wasn't like an all-time terrible service or anything like that. And in my opinion, just shows how high Ramsey's standards were, I'm sure. But it was definitely interesting to see the cast struggle out the gate. And like, I didn't love the fact that Amber got so much hate for trying to save herself either. So this is definitely propelled by the first half for sure. But I just feel like the second half leaves a little bit to be desired. And like I said, the next season here is an inverse of that, and is in fact the season right before season 23, and that is season 22, The American Dream. And while the first half is essentially nothing, the service, and to be frank, the entire 2-part episode is really highlighted by Tad, one of the best first boots ever. And the first season to really be propelled by the boots, I mean, you got Scott as well, but Tad especially is just so funny. But at the same time, the service, while again, nothing all-time bad, it was a double ejection, which was definitely a bit more shocking, at least at the time, given this was the first double loss since season 12. So yeah, nothing too much of note, but Tad definitely is a highlight in the best of ways in this 2-part premiere. While this next season is my least favorite season, the premiere itself, while nothing amazing, isn't too bad, with that being season 9. And if anything, it was nice to have an episode this season that wasn't exclusively about Elise, even though she still, of course, ran her mouth this episode. And man, does it make it hurt, especially in retrospect, that either her or Carrie could have been eliminated had the blue team done better. But yeah, pretty notorious bad service for the blue team here, with everyone other than Jonathan, Will, and Paul making a mistake of some sort. And while a lot of people consider Steven as a forgettable first boot, I always found him a pretty underrated donkey, and he really adds a lot to this premiere. But yeah, nothing really else of note, especially that opening where Ramsey makes fun of the cast for thinking they would cook in front of the audience, only for them to do this 2 seasons later. So again, when you combine it all, like, there's positives, there's negatives. So in the end, I feel 14 is a good spot for the premiere of season 9. We got a somewhat controversial and low ranking here for an all-time beloved season, but the premiere itself, I just simply don't think stands out compared to others, with that being season 5's premiere. And I do really like this Inner Dish Challenge. Not only was it cool to see the cast get picked right away, but it was a nice mix of great dishes, especially in Old School Hell's Kitchen, and all-time bad ones as well, highlighted by Colleen talking back to Ramsey. And speaking of, she was a train wreck all night in the Red Kitchen, but saved due to Carol boozing up the customers, which was interesting. You got the beginning of Lacey versus pretty much everyone, but especially Lacey versus the Red team. And then the blue team, a ton of chefs made mistakes, including Danny, who also showed some attitude towards Ramsay this episode. I think what really hurts this episode, though, to me, is not only the fact that Sarah is a pretty forgettable first boot, but I feel the blue team's hate on Seth came out of nowhere. Like, he was only shown to make one mistake during service, and yet the blue team just couldn't wait to get him off the team as soon as possible. It was just kind of odd, and I felt like we were missing something. So, I mean, there is a lot of good stuff happening, just nothing super noteworthy. And again, the first boot is important, and, you know, it's a pretty forgettable one. And just the whole Steph storyline was kind of underwhelming. So, again, when you add everything up, season 5 lands here at number 13. So, as we approach the middle of this list, essentially, I feel that this premiere is the perfect middle point because it probably has the worst overall episode here, but also one of, if not the best episode here as well. And that is the 2-part premiere of season 11. And again, while the first part has some funny moments for, you know, such as Seabass and the bus ride, and just in general, some all-time awful dishes, oh my goodness, does it not only drag, but doing this inner dish in front of the audience was so cringe. It's almost not even funny how bad it was. And again, probably the worst all-around episode on this list. But again, if we're factoring the service as well, as I am, it is one of the best episodes in the show's history, much less a premiere episode, as that opening night service with all the ejections and moments, it's so freaking iconic for obvious reasons. So again, a really, really bad first part, an all-time great second part, and thus that kind of creates, for like I said, an overall middle tier ranking here, landing at number 12. At number 11 is an episode that I've called the worst of that season, but that just goes to show how good the season is as a whole, given that the premiere is a mid-tier on my ranking, with that being the season 3 premiere. And like the obvious bad thing here is Hell's Bitches, especially their treatment of Julia. However, I mean, not only is that memorable, but it truly makes for such a satisfying elimination with Tiffany being blindsided by Melissa over Julia, one of, if not the biggest villain first boot of all time. And then on the blue side, you got Aaron being a goofball, Vinny talking back to Ramsay, Rock being the first person ever to serve canned food in his dinner dish to Ramsay. So again, while the treatment of Julia and general arguing in the Red Kitchen is pretty awful, it definitely makes this premiere stand out. And there are so many other good moments as well. And thus, again, I feel the middle tier is a good spot for this placement here at number 11. On to the top 10 now, and at number 10 is a premiere I've always called a true premiere episode of Hell's Kitchen, with that being season 2. And this was season 1 done obviously so much better, as it was basically 45 minutes of a bunch of helpless wannabe chefs getting absolutely destroyed by Ramsay, who was so much more of a beast on camera here, and of course no explain anything, just full on character development and moments. And yeah, a Trainwreck Center Dish challenge, and an even bigger Trainwreck service, highlighted by Polly being the first true memorable awful first boot, with her even coining the term donkey. You also had Heather stand out in the best of ways right away. So again, maybe some nostalgia glasses a bit, but to me, while it's nothing amazing, a premiere like this gets me excited for what's to come in a Hell's Kitchen season. And at the end of the day, that's all you can really ask for a premiere of any show, much less Hell's Kitchen. So I've talked throughout how important a first boot can make a premiere. And to me, the premiere that benefits the most from a first boot is season 14's premiere. And there's nothing too much memorable here. Even the legends we would get from this season, other than T, are pretty quiet. But oh my goodness, Krista absolutely makes this episode, just being completely clueless and a donkey from beginning to end, to the point where she makes virtually like no actual cooking mistakes, minus her center dish, of course. She just does and says so many stupid things, and bless her heart, it makes for absolute comedy gold. Again, if we have even an above average first boot here, this season is definitely in the lower half. But Krista and her antics propels this premiere to the top 10, ultimately landing here at number 9. On to number 8, and while I'm a lot lower on the season as a whole compared to most, the 2-part premiere is absolutely fantastic, and that is the premiere of Battle of the Ages. And while yeah, the second part is absolutely what makes this 2-part premiere, I feel even this inner dish tasting was a bit more lively. Obviously, you got Zeus's shark story. The Vlad and Alyssa knowing each other's storyline was kind of odd. Alex essentially setting up his winter arc right away with his confession about COVID, shutting down his restaurant. But again, the second half is incredible, as you got Ilyana saving herself from elimination, and frankly was saved during dinner service as well, as she had a bad night there. But the 40-somethings were just a complete train wreck, which of course would lead to one of the best nomination ceremonies ever, and Zeus offering himself up, only for Ramsay to send him back in line, only to send him home anyway after eliminating Charlene. I mean, it's big moments throughout, and even the first half is one of the better first parters of these 2-part premieres. And thus, Battle of the Ages lands here at number 8. So I know I said season 14 is propelled like no other premiere due to its first boot. Well, Young Gun is literally doubled by the fact that it has, in my opinion, the worst chef in the show's history, as Matthew does nothing but fail in the worst of ways for 2 straight episodes. He served shit to Ramsay, served an awful elimination challenge dish, he made awful mistakes during service, and then laughed about it in the middle of freaking service. All this culminated in Ramsay not even letting him plead his case. And again, very little much else of note here, other than arguably the best opening night ever on the red side. But Matthew absolutely makes this an iconic 2 episodes, and is the best 2-part premiere in Hell's Kitchen history solely due to him. On to season 6, and this season's premiere was actually my top 5 when I did my video on the top 5 premieres, actually landing in at number 2. But I have dropped on it a bit, and that is season 4. And again, still a lot of good stuff here, as you got Ramsay going undercover, you got arguably the worst overall Sinner Dish challenge in the show's history, and a really fun service. But that's the thing, it was just a fun service with no real true memorable meltdowns or moments. And like in retrospect, I really think the team captain twist was kind of silly, and just put a target on Vanessa and Bobby right away. It was also disappointing to see Dominic go home over Jason, a very forgettable first boot in the grand scheme of things. So again, some minor nitpicks, but they are enough nitpicks to push this premiere out of the top 5. But nonetheless, still a very good episode. On to the top 5 now, and replacing season 4 in my top 5 is the premiere of season 12. And I mean, what else needs to be said other than the worst service in Hell's Kitchen history? I mean, 20 pro chefs couldn't get out one dish. Just insane every time I say it. And like, there's some iconic moments outside of that as well, such as Ramsay owning Mike, Korov and his finger mistake, and the Nicole, Sandra, and Joy fight. And not only that, but I truly don't think this premiere was rushed despite there being 20 chefs. Like, yeah, of course there were some people I didn't know much about, but I truly felt I got to know a good portion of this cast out the gate, which I was so impressed by. But again, it's still not quite as fleshed out and frankly as iconic, in my opinion, as the premieres above it. But nonetheless, I do think this premiere deserves a spot now in my top 5. At number 4 is a premiere I'll always love no matter what, with that being the premiere of season 7. And this has a hilarious intro with Ramsay not only saying he was going to complete a service for the first time ever and immediately putting the pressure on these poor chefs, but then lighten the mood a bit by making out with his undercover wife. Like, it's just so freaking savage. But again, what really makes this premiere is the service, as Ramsay was truly not going to let anyone get in his way of completing opening night, kicking out nearly half the cast in order to do so. And like, you could argue that it has a very forgettable first boot, but again, if anything, that makes sense given the storyline of this episode. So again, you all know I love these individual cookout episodes, especially given the circumstances here. Some other fun moments as well, and I truly think this is a top tier premiere episode in the show's history. Ultimately laying here at number 4. At number 3 is the premiere of season 10. And this is one of the more funnier opening sequences, with the chefs thinking they're all going to get their heads shaved, and sous chef Scott making the attractive Danielle think she was losing her hair. Like, that is so funny and brutal. And while this dinner dish has its moments, not only is this service insanely iconic due to 22-year-old executive chef Tavon having one of the worst services of all time, but this was truly the only episode all season where the red team wasn't being toxic in some way. Like, you had like one comment from Kimmy and that was it. Not only that, but we got some individual kickouts here as opposed to straight up team kickouts, which would be a theme for the season. Christina Wilson having an awful opening night is crazy to watch in retrospect. So yeah, just so much good stuff happening, which is why the season 10 premiere lands here at number 3. At number 2 is season 8 premiere. At number 2 is season 8 premiere. And I mean, you knew what you were getting into this season after watching this premiere. Just a complete hilarious train wreck. You got one of the worst Inner Dish challenges of all time, highlighted by arguably the worst ever in Antonia. And not only that, but then you got the scary medevac in Antonia as well. And then service is just absolutely hilarious, as you got Boris imitating Ramsay, the Boris and Raj pizza incident, Trev somehow failing over and over again on salads, Sabrina thinking Nona should go for elimination for snoring. I mean, if this had a more memorable first boot as opposed to Lisa, I might have even considered this for number 1. But nonetheless, just an amazing and hilarious premiere episode for season 8, as you would expect. But of course, at number 1, the best premiere in Hell's Kitchen history is the premiere of season 6. And like, what else needs to be said about this premiere? Just an all-time great episode from the season, as is the norm. I mean, I guess this dinner dish like challenge isn't like a top 5 dinner dish or anything. But I mean, look at all these moments. You got the look moment from Ramsay on Melinda and Louie with the latter getting ejected. All this in order for Robert to get his second chance, which was so heartwarming. This was also the first Red vs. Blue Team Center Disc Challenge, which added a layer to the challenge. Ramsey was still at his peak after he was at his angriest the season prior. Just an incredible episode, and it's easily the best premiere episode in Hell's Kitchen history. So there you have it, guys, my ranking of each Hell's Kitchen premiere. Let me know what you guys agree and disagree with in the comments below, and be sure to hit that subscribe and like button to support these videos. And with all that said, take care everyone, and I'll see you next time.